Once upon a time, in a small village nestled deep in the heart of the Himalayas, there lived a young man named Tenzin. Tenzin was known throughout the village for his wisdom and compassion. He had dedicated his life to the teachings of Buddhism, seeking to attain enlightenment and lead a pure and virtuous existence. Tenzin was diligent in his practice, meditating daily and studying the scriptures under the guidance of the village monk, Lama Dorje. He had made significant progress in controlling his desires and maintaining a peaceful mind, but he still struggled with the occasional influx of impure thoughts that would disrupt his tranquility. One evening, as Tenzin sat in meditation beneath a towering pine tree, he couldn't help but feel frustrated with himself. His mind had been plagued by increasingly dirty thoughts that he found hard to resist. He knew that these thoughts were obstacles on his path to enlightenment, and he longed for a way to rid himself of them once and for all. The following morning, Tenzin sought the counsel of Lama Dorje. He approached the elderly monk with a bowed head and a heart heavy with his inner turmoil. "Lama Dorje," he began, "I am deeply troubled by my impure thoughts. Despite my efforts to practice mindfulness and purity, they continue to haunt me. Please, guide me on how to destroy these thoughts and attain the peace I so desperately seek, Lama Dorje." A man of great wisdom and compassion gazed at Tenzin with understanding. He replied, "Tenzin, it is natural for the mind to be clouded by impure thoughts from time to time. Our thoughts are like passing clouds in the vast sky of consciousness. The key is not to fight them but to understand their nature and let them dissipate on their own." Tenzin listened intently, his eyes filled with hope. Lama Dorje continued, "To gain a deeper understanding of your thoughts, I will give you a task. Tomorrow, you will take a small jar of clear water and place it by the riverbank. Sit there in meditation, and as each impure thought arises, visualize it as a speck of dust falling into the clear water. Watch as the water becomes cloudy with each thought, but do not try to change or control them. Allow the water to settle on its own, just as your mind will." The young man nodded in understanding and gratitude. He thanked Lama Dorje and prepared himself for the task ahead. The next morning, Tenzin made his way to the riverbank, carrying a glass jar filled with pristine mountain water. He found a quiet spot under a Bodhi tree and began his meditation. As Tenzin closed his eyes and focused on his breath, he soon became aware of the impure thoughts creeping into his consciousness. They ranged from desires of the flesh to envy and anger. With each thought that surfaced, he visualized it as a tiny speck of dust and watched as it gently fell into the jar of water. As the day passed, Tenzin's thoughts continued to cloud the once clear water. He observed the turbulence within the jar, mirroring the turbulence in his own mind. But he remembered Lama Dorje's teachings and resisted the urge to fight or suppress his thoughts. Hours turned into days, and Tenzin remained steadfast in his meditation by the riverbank. Slowly but surely, the water in the jar began to clear. The sediments of impure thoughts settled at the bottom, leaving the water transparent once again. Tenzin realized that just as the water had naturally purified itself, his mind, too, had the capacity to cleanse itself of impure thoughts when left undisturbed. Tenzin returned to Lama Dorje with a heart full of gratitude and a mind at peace. He shared his profound experience by the riverbank, explaining how he had watched his impure thoughts come and go, just like passing clouds. Lama Dorje smiled warmly and said, "Tenzin, you have learned a valuable lesson. Our thoughts are transient, and by observing them without attachment, we can allow them to dissipate naturally. It is not the thoughts themselves that harm us, but our attachment to them. Tenzin continued his diligent practice of meditation and mindfulness, using the lessons he had learned to maintain a pure and virtuous mind. Over time, the impure thoughts that had once troubled him became less frequent and less powerful. He came to understand that true purity of mind could only be achieved through acceptance and inner peace. As the years passed, Tenzin became a respected teacher in his own right, guiding others on their spiritual journeys. He shared the story of the clear water jar with his students, reminding them that the path to enlightenment was not about eradicating impure thoughts but about embracing them with compassion and letting them go. And so, in the quiet Himalayan village, the story of Tenzin and the clear water jar became a symbol of hope and inspiration, teaching all who heard it that the path to inner peace was not one of struggle and resistance but of understanding and acceptance.